What's going on, guys? This is Laris Micario. I'm an award-winning actor and online Shakespeare coach. Today, we're going to be doing a breakdown of Othello, Act 4, Scene 2. For those of you who don't know, the play Othello is by William Shakespeare. Othello is a Moor, and the Moors were people that lived in North Africa in antiquity, and he's a general in the Venetian army. He marries, well, Othello is traditionally played by a black man, but he can be anyone from sort of an Arabian looking person, a Berber, someone with brown skin, kind of fair skin, jet black skin. But for the sake of the story, he's pretty black, and he marries a white woman, Desdemona. And he's the general in this army, so he's very well beloved, but he runs into some difficulty sometimes. Not everybody is super cool and keen on him marrying this woman, but they are madly in love. Iago plays the villain in the story, upset because Othello has, in essence, passed him over for a promotion he thought he was entitled to, seeks to destroy Othello and their beloved marriage by, employing some Machiavellian machinations. It's a very famous play. It's classic for a reason. And this part right here, he's kind of where Othello flips over because he's kind of in doubt for most of the play. He's not really sure, even though Iago's working in his ear. But this is really the part in the play where he kind of just basically calls his wife a whore. So it's a short synopsis for this bit right here. So Othello questions Emilia about Cassio. So Cassio is a lieutenant in Othello's army. And he's the one that actually replaced Iago for the role that Iago thought he was entitled to. Cassio and Desdemona's relationship, acting as if Emilia is the mistress of a brothel and Desdemona one of her prostitutes. Othello denounces Desdemona to her face as a whore. Desdemona turns for help to Iago, who reassures her. Now, Iago's a bad guy, so his reassurance is not really a real reassurance. He manipulates everyone. So whenever you're breaking down a script, whenever you're breaking down a speech, I'm just going to break down the speech that Othello gives to Desdemona. You want to try to define the terms. A lot of Shakespeare's terms are archaic, which means that they're old and they're not in use anymore. Shakespeare invented something like, reports say something like thousands of words, but definitely 1,800 words, and about 1,200 are still in usage today in our language. I mean, some would argue that he really did invent modern English. This was a time in early modern English when he was writing. He died in 1616. As you know, this was really the age of exploration and colonialism. So a lot of Europe was sailing all over the world. They were founding colonies and bringing back a lot of spices and crops and things from the New World, including people. And the whole world really started to open up for them. And so we're going to start off with the first one. So the word heaven basically is the home of God. Usually these characters will sort of evoke heaven, God. In Shakespeare's day, people really had a relationship with the divine, with the metaphysical. And so God was very much a real thing. God is very much a real thing for many people today. I mean, there are like 1.1 billion Christians, 1.4 billion Muslims in the world, so millions of Jews. So God and the monotheistic Judeo-Christian God in the sky was very much still a real thing, but very much then. I mean, this was their whole world. So affliction, as in misery, sorrow, pain, distress. I'm dividing some of these terms because many of these terms have actually changed and evolved over time. They don't necessarily carry the same meaning that they do today. So it's important to really understand exactly what they were talking about and what they were actually referring to. And a word that we use today may have been the same word and had a different usage way back then. So that's important in terms of making sense of this speech. So sore, as in a painful grievance, shame and ill feeling. We understand shame. So that one is, the same definition. Steeped, surround or fill with a quality of influence. Poverty, as in destitution. We still know what that word means. Captivity, imprisonment. Patience, sufferance, or permission, meaning to allow something. To suffer something is to deal with it. I don't suffer fools, or he doesn't suffer fools, means that person doesn't deal with fools. They don't allow themselves to sort of be they don't take shit, basically. And this is a word that isn't necessarily used commonly. but it was very useful. So fixed figure for the time of scorn to move his slow, unmoving finger at, to be made a laughing stock. So we understand that, and you're going to see and understand what he means by that in the play that we go in the speech that we go over in a second. Garnered is a storehouse or granary. A garner is a storehouse or a granary. They used to store things, you know, especially in Italy, all over Europe, really. They would have grains that they would cultivate, and then they would put them in a granary, in a storehouse, for the winter or for later, right? Where either I must live or bear no life, the fountain from the which my current runs or else dries up. He's speaking of Desdemona and her womb being the object that bears life and continues his family line, thus his life. The woman is very much considered nature, the incubator of life. She is where life springs from and springs forth. And so when a man marries a woman, he puts all of his, for lack of a better phrase, all of his eggs in that one basket, right? And he's saying, like, that's where my life will continue to live, because that is my wife and she will bear my children. And you'll see why that is significant in a second when we actually go over the speech itself. Cistern is a waterproof receptacle for holding liquids, usually water. So a well goes really, really deep. It goes deep down into the water line. A cistern might be kind of like a cesspool, right? Although a cesspool is for feces and waste. But a cistern is like something that's dug into the ground that doesn't go as deep as a well, but it's meant to be a container. Sometimes they would build cisterns underground, and they would look kind of like baths, but they were storehouses of water or other liquids. So foul toads, in this context, dirty men. So Shakespeare speaks a lot in metaphors, and there's what he's saying and then what he means. Shakespeare's language, Shakespeare's characters have to speak to think, to know what they're feeling. Whereas in modern acting, so you have to know what they're feeling in order to be able to speak, like you have to justify what they're saying. But Shakespeare's characters are literally thinking and speaking and feeling on the line in the moment. So that's what's great about Shakespeare, is like what they're saying is what they're feeling. It's what's going on. It's what's happening in the actual scene itself, which is great for you as an actor, because if you just focus on the lines and you pay attention to what he's saying, then you're going to know what's going on in the actual play itself. In Shakespeare, you have like enter, exit, alarum. Yeah, like they don't give you very many states. They fight, he dies, she drinks. Like that's really what you get, right? Maybe a retinue comes in with the king, and then that tells you there's a bunch of people coming up behind him, you know, and there's a large group and stuff like that. So you as an actor really have to pay attention to what's being said, what's being communicated in the lines in the text. And so it forces you to be very specific, like to search for, to be sort of a text detective and actually know what the words mean, why he's saying them in that particular order, and what he's trying to communicate. And it's also going to tell you who the character is and how the character thinks, how the character feels, and how they're moving through the world, which is important for you, because we really are the things that we say. The word really does become flesh. You see this in life now. Really, the things that you say, the things that come out of your mouth really do determine your world, right? Which is freeing and also a little bit frightening, because it's kind of like, oh God, well, the words that I continue to use, the stories I continue to tell myself will shape my world. And Shakespeare's characters really do mimic the human condition in that way, because they really are, those words are really the world that is existing before them, that is sort of unfolding and manifesting before them. Cherubim, which is a member of the second order of angels. Like I told you, the heavens, God, the metaphysical, the angels are very real to Shakespeare, whose distinctive gift is knowledge, often represented as a winged child or winged head of a child. If you think about like Cupid and stuff, an innocent or sweet child. And often cherubims were like these, like usually white, it was Europe, right? And they had like these rosy cheeks, and they were these the blonde, like towhead, blonde head kid, and they were really cute. And they have like these little wings. So a cherubim is supposed to be like this cute, beautiful little kind of a child baby sort of thing, right? And then grim is cruel or severe or ghastly. Okay, so this is what Othello is saying, right? As you see here with the lines, this is in blank verse. And what blank verse means, basically, there's something called iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter, IAMB is the Greek word for foot. Penta meaning 5. Meter as in a measure of music. Meter is not the actual definition for a measure of music, but for the sake of what we're doing here, let's call a meter a measure of music. And in Shakespeare, every line is a measure of music. And within each line, in iambic pentameter, in blank verse, you have 5 feet per line, 2 beats or syllables per foot, equaling the 10 beats. Now, sometimes there are 9, sometimes there are 11, sometimes there are 12, 13, or 14. That's just the standard. And we need a standard for all things because anything that deviates from the standard will give us a message in terms of what's going on. So he says, had it pleased heaven, beat, 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 right? And he's talking about heaven as in God, or the gods, the home of God, to try me with affliction. Had it pleased heaven to try me with affliction. Had it made God, had it pleased God to try me with affliction, to try me affliction as in all the punishments that he could have instilled in me and bestowed upon me. Had they reigned, and then he goes on to describe it. So often in Shakespeare, what they'll do is there will be the first line. You can think of Shakespeare kind of like a lawyer's deposition in a way. Sort of he stands in front of the court and he makes a statement, an opening statement, and then he defends whatever he's doing. I'm not a lawyer, never been to court necessarily. I just understand that they make some sort of an opening statement and then they're defending whatever they're doing or they're saying. They paint a picture, they tell a story to the jury or the judge or the court, whatever. Had it pleased heaven to try me with affliction, boom, he's talking about affliction and now he's going to go describe these afflictions. Had they rained all kinds of sores and shames on my bare head. Sores, if you think about it, so he has bare head. Often Othello is bald when he's played. All kinds of sores and shames on my bare hair. So sores, if you think about like the plague, the plague was a thing, and Shakespeare lived through the plague. We don't really have a black plague, a bubonic plague now, because we're not living amongst rats and shit in ships, but definitely the plague killed about 1/3 of the Europe's population. So sores and leprosy and these things were not uncommon in Shakespeare's day. People saw dead bodies all the time. So had they rained all kinds of sores and shames on my bare head. And sores and shames, but also shame comes from below. If you think about like a parent shaming a child or the society shaming an individual, you can think of God coming down and raining shames, and not only shames, but sores. If you think about shame, same sort of pollutes you from the inside out, right? And sores are kind of an outcropping of a diseased inner self. Right. You see with Shakespeare, he's always painting like vivid pictures. The pictures are very vivid, right? And he's talking about raining. It's like rain is nonstop. It's a downpouring. It doesn't stop. It's just relentless. Let's see here. Steeped me in poverty to the very lips. So steep, if we go up here to steep, the definition for steep is surrounded or filled with a quality or influence, right? Of influence. Steeped me in poverty to the very lips. So he's saying steeped. Steeped. If you think about steep, it's sort of like filled me in poverty to the very lips, which is right this level. So that's the image that he's painting of. It's sort of like he's stacking. Not only is it being rained down upon with sores and shames and all that stuff, right? He's being steeped from the bottom up in poverty. If you think about sort of the poor people, they live, you call them gutter snipes, so they live in the dregs of society. And so he's steeped in poverty and he's being rained down upon. So you think of him sort of kind of being buried from all levels. Steeped to the very lips. Given to captivity, me and my utmost hope. So he's saying given to captivity, meaning imprisoned, me and my utmost hopes. Now, when someone is imprisoned, especially in solitary confinement, I mean, there is nothing else. And prisons now are really bad. Obviously, they're still really bad. All the shit that goes on in prisons, like you just watch YouTube or listen to some of the stories and stuff like that. It's horrible. Prisons then were even worse. Like they were dungeons. They stuck you 4 or 5 levels underneath. You never saw the sun and you died down there. Like once they convicted you, that was it. It was very rare to be freed. So he's painting a very, very grievous, dark picture. Given to captivity, me and my utmost hopes. I should have found in some place of my soul a drop of patience. He says, even if all of these horrible things, if I had been rained down with sores and shames and all this other horrible shit, right? steeped me in poverty to the very least, and then been buried in poverty, just been surrounded and buried in all this pollution and horrible stuff. I should have found in some place of my soul a drop of patience. I still could have found some patience. I should have found in some place of my soul a drop of patience. Some place of my soul, a drop of patience. You see that? Like he's talking about basically, if you think about a drop kind of being squeezed out of something, I still could have found some place in my soul that was just polluted and destroyed and distraught, a drop of patience. But alas, to make me a fixed figure for the time of scorn, to point his slow, unmoving finger. And he says, but alas, but however, but no, to make me a fixed figure for the time of scorn, to point his slow, unmoving finger at the time of scorn. To scorn something is to belittle it, to just destroy it, to imbue it with punishment and all kinds of horrible things, right? Yet could I bear that too. To point his slow, unmoving finger at, and you think about something that's being humiliated, right? Sort of somebody that's put up on the town square. If you think about like a movie like Braveheart or Game of Thrones, where Cersei is sort of being walked through. If you've ever seen Game of Thrones, she's being walked through King's Landing. I forget what she did, but people were like throwing shit at her, feces and food and all kinds. And that's what they used to do to people. They used to parade them in public, so people could scorn them and humiliate them in public. So he's painting this picture of being rained down with all of these horrible things and being steeped in poverty and dirty and distraught and destitute, destroyed and still and imprisoned. And still he would have been able to find some patience to be able to suffer it. But alas, and he's setting it up now, to make me a fixed figure for the time of scorn, to point his slow, unmoving finger at. Yet could I bear that too well, very well. And he's saying, even that I could bear. Even that I could bear if I was humiliated in front of everybody. If the gods rained down humiliation upon me, I still could bear that too. Well, very well. But there, and when he's pointing now, he's standing right in front of Desdemona right now. And he's pointing at her and he's saying, but there, where I have garnered up my heart, where I have stored my heart, where I've taken my heart and stored it. When a man loves a woman, he gives her his heart. He gives it to her, right? For her to store, to hold. She is the keeper of his heart. Where I have garnered up my heart, where either I must live, my bloodline, I, Othello, must live or bear no life. If not in her, then there is no life. The fountain from the which my current runs, if you think about that imagery of, the women bear children, she's the fountain of life. Very much like the woman traditionally is considered sort of in line with nature, right? And water runs through nature, and fruits and plants bloom, and animals are born and they die and they're born again, right? Mother Nature gives life. The fountain from the which my current runs. If you think about a current in a more sexual nature, now, just so you know, Shakespeare was one giant dick joke. It was just a dick joke after a dick joke. So they're everywhere. But he's saying the fountain from the which my current run, you could think of it in terms of semen, come, right? The fountain from the which my current runs. Or else dries up. And he says, the fountain from the which my current runs, or else dries up. If it doesn't run there, nothing. Nothing. My bloodline will not continue. I will not go on. The fountain from the which my current runs, or else dries up. To be discarded thence. To be discarded thence. Or keep it as a cistern for foul toads to not engender. And he's saying, or keep it. He's either I will discard it or keep it. And he's talking about her. He's talking about her womb, her body, right? Or keep it as a cistern. And I told you, though, a cistern is a place where water or liquid is stored. Keep it as a cistern for foul toads, disgusting men, to not engender in. And to engender means to give life, to engender something. He's calling his wife a cum dumpster. He says, if I keep her, this fucking cum dumpster. Now, mind you, this is his beloved wife who he loves more than anything in the world, or did, but who has been convinced throughout the play, Iago has convinced him that she has been unfaithful with Cassio. And Othello is an extraordinary man in most respects, but like all great men, he's flawed. And his main flaw is his vanity and his pride. And for him to believe that he could be married to a whore in this way, I mean, it's such a blow to him. And his mind has been poisoned to such an extent that he can't even see anything else. Now, if you see the play, you see like how much they're in love. So this is Act 4, Scene 2. How far from grace she has fallen in his eyes, and how far from grace he has fallen in the eyes of the audience. But this man is at his wit's end. He's just destroyed at this point. To not engender to not engender in. Turn thy complexion there. Patience. He's talking about patience. So he's basically embodying patience. So there's something that we do. We imbue things we personify certain things, but he's calling patience he's invoking the gods. Turn thy complexion there, patience, thou young and rose-lipped cherubim. And by patience, he's talking about the cherubim, the lesser angels. I there look grim as hell. Now look upon this thing, my wife, and the situation that we are in. I there look grim as hell. So he's going from this beautiful picture that we painted in the beginning of the play. And he's telling the lesser angels, he says, look upon this, look upon her, look upon this situation and me. Yes, it's bad, isn't it? It's disgusting, horrible, heinous. And out of context, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But when you see the earlier part of the play, it makes sense. How much of a fall from grace this is, and how heartbreaking. He's saying this to his wife, who he loves more than anything, who was his everything. She could do no wrong. But because another man poisoned his mind, he has now destroyed his relationship with his beloved. And very shortly thereafter, destroys his life as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you got some really good insights into it. This is just very cursory, very simple way to break down the speech. You always start out with find out what's going on in the scene, define the terms that you don't understand. And by all means, this is not necessarily as extensive as it could be. We could definitely go much deeper. And then you just go through and see sort of what they're saying. And when you define the terms and you understand the context, you definitely can put it in your own words and begin to understand and break it down. And then it becomes a lot easier for you to play. This is also stuff that you can do with film and television work. This is the basis of all script analysis that you will ever do in film and TV. This is the wellspring, the fountain from the which all acting current runs is Shakespeare. He really did create so many things. There would be no modern acting world without him. There would be no modern work without him. So I highly suggest that you definitely look this over. You start training in this stuff, or you at least read it if you're a little bit curious. If you'd like to know more, I am a Shakespeare acting coach, and I would love to take you through some of this stuff and see if it's a good fit for you. I know that it's going to change your life for the better. It'll make you the best actor in every room you walk into. And yeah, you will book tons and tons of work with this stuff. It has made a huge difference in my life. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, hit me up. Shoot me an email at larismacario and the number 2 at gmail.com, larismacario2 at gmail.com. Visit Children of Dionysus, that's CHILDREN ofdionYsus.com. Check out some of my work there. And yeah, enjoy. And I hope you guys have a great day. Later.